The following program is brought to you by Jack Miller.
It's Down to Business with Jack Miller. Forget what they teach you in school. This is real life, not Wall Street, but Main Street. A real show on what's really involved with starting and running a business with all the ups and downs. Our guests will answer your questions and provide you with valuable information. Stay tuned and join in the conversation.
Hello, everyone. This is Jack Miller. Thank you for joining us today in the terrestrial radio world and on podcasting. We're here with Todd Cohen. How are you today, Todd?
I'm doing great, Jack. Doing great.
Today should be a good show, a quiet show. It's just me and you, buddy. Last week we had Michael Reagan, a high-intensity show. Next week we have a super guest by the name of Roger Stone. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, but we'll just muddle our way through it. Actually, a couple months ago, I tweeted that we were going to do a show and people should write in or tweet in and ask us questions on real estate and financing and mortgages. So I figure we'll do that today. That's always good.
That's great. And if you want to give the Twitter address, we welcome any new questions that you listeners out there, all 5 or 6 of you may have. And, feel free to tweet us.
The Twitter address, Stud Guys in Miami, or the real one. My Twitter address is HJackMiller1. What's yours?
And mine is at Todd M. Cohen, Cohen.
Okay, so before we get to the show, let me ask you a question. You go out Saturday night with your wife, and of course, the first restaurant you go to, there's like a 16-hour wait. The next restaurant's like a 2-hour wait. Then the next restaurant, there's no wait. So we go to the next restaurant. We sit down. It's like a local it's a nicer Italian place, pizza place, whatever you call it. We sit outside. It takes forever for the waiter to come. He finally comes. He's sweating. He's disgusting. Okay, we order our food. We make the mistake of asking for something terrible like bread and butter. And he goes, "Oh, you want bread and butter?" Okay, he brings that.
He didn't charge you for it?
He was a disaster. I asked for extra sauce. I asked for extra napkins. The whole meal goes nothing with nothing. The guy was the worst waiter in the world, okay? And he's sweating the whole time, which is gross. And sweat's coming in your hands. He brings out the silverware, not on a napkin, just touches the fork and the knife, throws it on the table. Like, when do you complain to the manager? And how much garbage do you put up with from waiters? Because I know I never complain. I just suck it up. And I'm miserable the whole time. But it seems the quality of waiter and waitress service is terrible. I know we've talked about this before.
We have, and
but
it's hard.
To me all the
you
time.
Do need to be nice to your wait staff. They're working hard. But I agree with you. I think our culture, our entire society has sort of evolved to a point where we're way too accepting of not only bad service, and it's not just at restaurants, but we also leave these set gratuities. It's become like a custom. Like, you can't leave less than 15%, or people
First of all, I
think
do.
something's wrong. And most people leave approximately 20%. And down here, because we live in like resort land, USA, near Miami, they a lot of places have just like charged 18% right across the board before you even sit down, because so many foreigners are down here that don't understand the tip culture we have.
We have the letter schmuck and idiots written all over our head.
That's
our forehead.
Right. But we've become accustomed to terrible service, and we do nothing about it, basically, because no one likes to make a scene. You need to be nice to your wait staff, and it's difficult. It's a very competitive world out there, and like you said, your alternative is get up and leave and wait 3 hours at a restaurant that actually has good food and good service.
That's the problem. Do you ever complain to the manager? Like, this guy, literally, sweat was dripping down his head. I could barely eat my salad because all I kept thinking about was his dirty hands on the silverware, him dripping. And I understand. And you know what happened? Now that the snowbirds are coming down, the restaurant probably didn't gear up enough, and he's probably a nice guy. But why should I have to pay the price?
You shouldn't. And the answer to your question is, do I ever complain? Here's the thing. My wife and my mother have dietary restrictions. Go figure. In today's society that people have dietary restrictions. Gluten, dairy, soy intolerances. So basically, they have any restaurant manager's ear from the get-go. Sometimes even the chef's ear from the get-go. So the guy is extra.
So what do they, when you go in the restaurant, what do they say? Oh, we have diet.
Well, they need to tell about their dietary restrictions and make sure that there's something that they can actually eat, get a gluten-free menu or this or that or the other. And, And so they tend to get better service from the get-go because they don't want to make someone sick, which is nice. And
So
restaurants that do cater to dietary restrictions in an ever-evolving world that becomes more and more difficult for restaurants to sort of administer to all of these different intolerances and allergies that happen to exist. You know, it's crazy out there for restaurant owners.
But what do you
and
do when they're
chefs.
just dirty? There's another restaurant we went to. I don't want to know the
Unacceptable.
Wait, there's another restaurant we went to. It's a local deli. They have like 20 of them in the area, and they have to have their own uniforms. And they're literally this girl's uniform, and she was very nice looking. She was like a 20. But most of I never get good looking waitresses, but this waitress was pretty hot. But she had this dirtiest like uniform on, whatever that it had the logo. And I weaved in. I told my wife, and I was with two of my kids, that I just have to ask her if she ever washes it or cleans it because it's so dirty. So through the conversation, I said, hey, let me ask you a question. If I get a job here, will they give me the uniforms? And got the whole thing. Make a long story short, they give her 2 uniforms. She never washes it. It's cruddy.
Right.
When do you go to the managers? When do you tweet about it? What do you do? Or just suck it up like
I don't know what you do, but I don't know how that staff, thinks that's acceptable too. I mean, at least, throw it in the laundry with your napkins. Force her to, wash them somehow. And it also would make you question whether the napkins at the restaurant were even laundered.
I was actually thinking about offering her to take her home, put her in the shower, and do it
there
myself.
You go,
but I didn't do that. I think it was a little inappropriate. But
always looking for that ray of sunshine on a cloudy day, aren't you?
I hope, but you know what? I'd be too scared. I'd be too intimidated. If it happened, I would be too intimidated. But it's a fantasy. But anyway, these waiters, I'm telling you, waitresses, they need to up the service. They need to be clean. It's disgusting.
No, that's right. You go out to dinner with a wife, you have a bottle of wine, it's $100. It's like automatic. You got to give them $20 for, service. And for what? I mean, they need to earn that. We need expensive.
To have a movement, better service movement. So you know what else kind of I think is funny? And you'll appreciate this. Are you a dog lover or a pet lover?
Absolutely love dogs. Absolutely can't stand cats.
Okay.
Mostly because I'm allergic to cats, but don't like them really either.
So the first thing I notice is over the summer, we were down in Margate, Atlantic City, and we stayed at the Brigada, and they have a sign, no children unless you're staying in the hotel. So you're not allowed to have kids in the hotel, but everyone has a dog there, which I think that's the funniest thing. We live in Boca. Everyone has these strollers with the dogs, and they're walking around with the dogs. They have dogs at the restaurant. Everyone has the dogs with the special needs thing, which I think is all BS. You could do that.
That's so that they can bring them into restaurants and on a plane.
Yeah. I just don't get the whole thing. They have to carry a dog around and 2 dogs. But the funniest is this Sunday we went to a Delray Craft Festival, and there's 2 dogs there, and one dog is licking the other dog and literally performing oral sex on the other dog. Okay, which I think is great to begin with. I don't know which was the male, which was the female, but they were pretty big dogs. But the funny part was the owners are making small conversation. Oh, how big will your dog get? Do you like this painting? They're like making like this isn't happening. The dogs are literally going to town on each other. And the owners are just like making like it's not happening.
Yeah, it's a National Geographic. It's a Discovery Channel movie right there.
I don't get the whole. I know dogs are great. We have a dog, and I always said the only pure love I had was my dog and my grandmother. But I just don't get this whole obsession with dogs.
There was a finding today. They actually clinically proved with testing of dogs' brains that dogs love humans and actually believe that they are part of their family with such an extreme amount of whatever the endorphins are in the brain that get released when you're in love with someone, dopamine or whatever it is. Dogs are found to have that released when they see members of their family. I read the article today. It's amazing.
You're like a world of knowledge.
I like to read.
I texted you the other night. My wife thinks you're the best. She's amazed. She goes, "Oh, Todd's so smart. He adds so much to the show. You're like you know about everything." I'm the idiot.
Come on, don't sell yourself short.
Every couple needs a role. You have a wealth of knowledge. Who would think you'd know about dopamine in dogs?
I don't know.
But I think it's good. I'm impressed.
I like to educate myself. I read. I like to read and keep up with current events and things that have nothing to do with anything like that.
I look at pictures.
Right. There you go.
I look at pictures. Anyway, next week I'm really excited. First of all, I want to tell everyone the response to the Michael Reagan interview, we didn't really talk about it, was fantastic. We had literally thousands of podcast downloads, hours listening to, got tons of positive response. How in a lot of interviews he's a little bit a harsh guy and has some right-wing thoughts, and we're not disputing it, but people felt he really opened up on our show and showed a personal, warm side of him.
No, and he really gave that good teaser where we all were left hanging, thinking that he loved Hillary Clinton for a cup of at least for a cup of coffee. We all believed that, and he came back from commercial and he's like, "Yeah, I'd love her to win because she'd be easy pickings for whoever on the right comes up against her." So that was funny.
Yeah, very gracious guy, Michael Reagan. I really appreciate him being on the show, and he's offered to be on the show again. I actually have a whole list of other questions for him, so hopefully we'll have him on again. But talk about Hillary Clinton. Next week, we have Roger Stone on the show. Roger Stone has an unbelievable bio, and he just wrote a book. It's called The Clintons' War on Women. He's actually going to be in town the following week at Barnes & Noble, October 22nd at 7 o'clock in Fort Lauderdale, doing a book signing.
That's amazing.
And next Thursday, he's going to be on our show live at 3 o'clock. He wrote this book about the Clintons, their war on women. It's just riveting. I don't know what's true, what's not true, but if half this stuff is true, man, I want to follow Bill around and get some of his leftovers.
Right. But, well, if the Clintons have a war on women, I'd love to know what he thinks about the Republican Party.
Oh, well, he used let me tell you, this guy Stone, he worked for he was involved with just about every national election since Nixon. He worked for Nixon. In fact, he was fired from the Nixon because they identified him as being the dirty trickster for the Nixon campaign. This guy's unbelievably controversial, very outspoken. He's worked for just about everyone. In fact, most recently, he worked for Trump. He's been a lobbyist for Trump for years, but most recently he unofficially co-chaired or chaired his presidential campaign, and he was one of the ones that they said, the public, some of the press said he was fired, and he said he quit, and who knows what happened.
Right.
But this guy is
no, it should be a riveting interview. I can't wait to do it next week. That's great.
Yeah, tons of questions. He's also written a book, The Man Who Killed Kennedy, Nixon's Secrets. Very, very well accomplished. He calls himself flamboyant. He's writing a book called Jeb and the Bush Crime Family.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're going to have Roger Stone next week. And I'm super excited about that. If anyone has any questions, let them send them in. I'm a little embarrassed to ask some of the questions about, like, Bill and Hillary. Like, you think we can ask if he likes blondes or brunettes or, like, anything like that?
I think we should ask anything we want. What he orders at McDonald's, the whole thing. Get through all the questions everyone would want to ask. Yeah.
Make a list.
What kind of cigars he likes to smoke, the whole thing. We could bring it all back.
I think we have to ask Monica for that. I don't know.
Okay,
I don't
fair
know.
enough.
But actually, one time, my wife and I were in, I forget, what's the island that has the Atlantis Hotel? The Bahamas, Bermuda.
Paradise Island.
Whatever. And we happened to see Bill Clinton there. Believe it or not. My wife comes up, she goes, there's all these Secret Service. Saw Bill Clinton. He was so warm and nice.
Was that before he lost like 100 pounds or after?
This was like, it was a long time ago. It was fairly recently after he left the presidency. And
he's lost a lot of weight.
He looks good. And I have this, again, forget about him. When I listen to it, I'm very impressed by him.
He's one of the best speakers I've ever heard. He might be the best speaker I've ever heard in my entire life. He's so good and so quick. It's not hard to imagine him picking up women and doing whatever he wanted. He's very commanding. His hands are enormous. I actually had the good fortune or whatever fortune of shaking his hand one day. I don't know what he did with that shortly before that, but I did shake his hand. It is a giant paw that he has there. And you know what they say about big hands, big gloves, the whole thing. So
I thought it was big feet.
I don't know. Maybe it is.
I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, Roger's going to be on next week. Very excited for him. And we have some other really good guests line up after that. We have to take a break in about 30 seconds. When we get back, let's talk real estate. Let's talk financing. Let's answer some of the people's questions.
That's right. Maybe they ask some more.
I think so. Ingrid, you ready? Let's.